Great minds are like eagles and build their nests in some lofty solitude. These are the words of the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer. They come from the sharp, often bitter mind of a man who, in his own time, was both respected and reviled for daring to expose the uncomfortable truths of human nature. He saw social environments not as harmonious gatherings, but as minefields of a resentment and hidden hostility. Schopenhauer's philosophy is a cold, sobering mirror. It reflects a world where intellect, like wealth, isn't a guaranteed path to admiration, but a potential target for envy. In this world, being too smart, too capable, or too quick to grasp a concept can make you an outcast. Your knowledge, instead of being a bridge, becomes a wall. Schopenhauer, alongside other great thinkers, realized that an obvious intellectual advantage can trigger something primal and ugly in others. It can create an unseen current of resentment, a silent hostility that undermines your relationships and even your sense of safety. What Schopenhauer proposes is a radical, almost heretical idea in our age of self-promotion and personal branding, the wisdom of feigning ignorance. He suggests that sometimes the smartest move you can make is to pretend to be less intelligent than you actually are. But why? Why would a philosopher advise us to hide our light? Why should we, who are constantly told to be ourselves and show our strengths, choose to play down our intellect? In this video, we will delve into Schopenhauer's profound and controversial strategy. We will explore what happens when you decide to reveal all your intellectual cards, and why, in many cases, the most effective approach is a quiet, strategic modesty. So, let's dive into an idea that will challenge everything you think you know about social dynamics. Schopenhauer's first and most crucial insight is that intellectual superiority, when openly displayed, is not perceived as a virtue. It's seen as a threat. Think about it. Our society preaches the value of intelligence and education. Yet, how many times have you been in a group where someone who knows too much is quietly ostracized? The atmosphere shifts. The conversation freezes. People feel insecure, exposed, and ultimately resentful. This isn't about some grand, conscious conspiracy. It's about a subtle, deeply human reaction. Schopenhauer believed that envy is an underlying force in human interaction. It's a primal, often unconscious drive that pushes us to resent and, in some cases, actively harm those we perceive as superior. A person's intellect can be a powerful trigger for this. When you effortlessly solve a problem that stumps others or articulate a complex idea with ease, you're not just showing your intelligence, you're highlighting their perceived shortcomings. Let's look at some everyday examples. Imagine a friend who constantly corrects people on minor facts during a casual conversation, or a colleague who over-explains a simple concept to show off their expertise. These are not acts of malice, but they are acts of intellectual immodesty. And what is the usual response? People begin to subtly avoid them. They become the butt of jokes. The group begins to see them not as a resource, but as a source of discomfort. They are an island of their own making. This is precisely why Schopenhauer proposed the wisdom of modesty. He argued that intellectual humility, or even feigning it, is a necessary social mask. It's not a sign of weakness, but a powerful form of self-protection. It allows you to navigate the tricky waters of social interaction without triggering the resentment that can make you a target. By not always being the smartest person in the room, you become more approachable. and paradoxically, more influential. Schopenhauer's ideas find a powerful echo in the words of the Spanish philosopher Baltasar Gracian. The greatest triumph is to appear foolish, but not to be so. This isn't a simple suggestion to be deceptive. It's a profound observation on the nature of truth in a social context. It reveals that the unvarnished truth, especially when it comes to one's own intellect, can be a great burden and an even greater liability. In an age where we are told to always be authentic and sincere, Gracian and Schopenhauer offer a counter-argument. They differentiate between genuine intellectual honesty and the imprudent display of one's knowledge. They suggest that the constant need to be seen as the most knowledgeable person in the room is not a virtue, but a form of intellectual vanity. This vanity can be destructive, as it can inadvertently hurt the pride of others. The traditional view of morality, the one that tells us to always speak our mind and be completely honest, often comes from a place of fear, the fear of being seen as dishonest. But in social settings, the act of proving one's superiority can trigger a different kind of moral wound, a blow to another person's pride. This wounded pride can then manifest as resentment and subtle hostility. It acts as an invisible wall, separating you from others and hindering genuine connection. This brings us to a crucial question posed by Schopenhauer. What is the true value of being the smartest person in the room? Is the need for validation from others worth the risk of being resented, isolated, and misunderstood? The truly wise person knows that sometimes the most profound intellectual act is not speaking, but listening, and not showing off, but learning. Schopenhauer and Gracian warn us that exposing our intelligence without prudence can lead to a dangerous place, social resentment. This resentment is a form of social and emotional void that opens up when your intellectual gifts are not appreciated, but instead are met with suspicion and hostility. It's a painful experience to realize that what you consider your greatest strength is seen by others as your greatest flaw. When you expose your intellect, it becomes a mirror, reflecting the insecurities and perceived weaknesses of others. They don't see your intelligence. They see a reminder of what they lack. This can lead to some very real dangers. First, there's the risk of becoming what you're fighting against. By constantly asserting your intellectual superiority, you can become arrogant and inflexible. You may lose the ability to learn from others, and in the process, alienate them completely. You'll stop seeing others as potential partners in a conversation and start seeing them as intellectual inferiors to be corrected. Second, there's the psychological toll. The constant feeling of being misunderstood and isolated can lead to a cycle of despair and loneliness. You may begin to believe that no one truly understands you and that you are forever destined to be a solitary figure. This can be a self-fulfilling prophecy, as your perceived superiority will push people away. Finally, there's the danger of losing yourself in your own superiority. By abandoning the old belief that you need to connect with others on their own terms, you may lose the opportunity for authentic social connections. You become a brilliant but lonely figure, trapped in a gilded cage of your own making. This is why Schopenhauer differentiates between intellectual exposure out of necessity, such as in a formal debate or an academic setting, and doing so out of vanity. One is a tool, The other is a weapon, and one that often backfires. At this point, you might be thinking, so I should just be a liar and pretend to be dumb. Not at all. The goal isn't to be a fraud, it's to be a master of social navigation. Schopenhauer's philosophy of feigning ignorance is not about a negative act of deception. It's about a positive act of self-preservation and social grace. It's an opportunity for deep transformation. When you abandon the constant need to prove your intelligence, something remarkable happens. You create space for genuine connections. You stop worrying about being the smartest person in the room and start focusing on being the most present person in the room. This can lead to authentic relationships built on genuine affection and shared interests, not on intellectual competition. This is where Schopenhauer's concept of the hidden genius comes in. The hidden genius is a person who transcends the need for social validation. They are brilliant, insightful, and wise, but they choose to live discreetly, creating their own wisdom and living their lives in peace. This person is not seeking external approval. Their self-worth is not dependent on what others think of their intelligence. The freedom of the hidden genius isn't a gift, it's a conquest. It requires self-awareness, discipline, and a quiet confidence that your intellectual gifts are for your own enrichment, not for public display. It's about understanding that the ultimate freedom is not about being the loudest voice in the room, but about having the inner peace to not need to be. Let's recap the challenge Schopenhauer presents. Question the things that drive you. Face the social hostility that your intellect can create, and have the courage to be discreet and humble. The greatest test of character is not in how much you know, but in how you use that knowledge to build a better life, not just for yourself, but with others. The hostility and resentment that you face when you expose your intellect are not just a problem to be solved, they are a mirror. When you understand why others react the way they do, you begin to see your own ego and vanity more clearly. This understanding can be a source of profound strength. The strength to know when to speak and when to be silent, when to show off and when to hold back. The true courage, according to Schopenhauer, is in accepting the value of strategic discretion as a powerful ally for social survival. It's a tool that allows you to thrive in a world that is not always ready to accept those who are different. So, let's conclude with a final thought on the delicate dance between honesty and discretion. Schopenhauer teaches us that being an intelligent person is not a license to be arrogant. It is a responsibility to be wise. And the wisest act of all is often the one that goes unseen.